Hey, welcome into the Irish NFL show presented by Trust Gaming and also presented by Matchbook Betting Exchange. Michael McQuaid here, joined by Colin Cronin, Brian O'Leary, Mark Cockerill. Welcome in, gentlemen. We get this order correct. Yeah, I think it's okay. No garden sprinklers this evening, so I should be okay to go.
Welcome home, Michael.
Yeah, thanks a million. I feel so happy to be home. Let's bring our first guest in, lads, and we'll chat about this game. 7-0 Cardinals, 6-1 Green Bay Packers. Josh Weinfuss from ESPN. Delighted to welcome him in again. Josh, we had you on, I think, just after JJ Watt, and I think you've got a visitor as well.
We do have a visitor. An unhappy visitor, bro. We're trying to calm him down.
Right on cue, Josh.
Josh, we've all been there. We've all been there, man. We know.
Hold on. Well, we might as well say hello to everybody since they can hear you. So this is Jordan. Hey, bud. Say hi. He's very
Jordan.
happy right now. So hi.
Hey, buddy.
It's the layers ahead of the game, isn't it?
All right. Sorry. What were you saying? All right. Let's go back one more.
I know, Josh.
The last time I was on was before JJ Watt, right?
Yeah, it was before JJ, but I was going to say, obviously, you've had a very important few months in your own personal life, but also a few months where the Cardinals are 7-0. And by the way, if you have to drop off, don't worry.
No, we're good. All right, what do you got?
So, Cardinals 7-0, Josh. Obviously, a fantastic start to the season, yeah?
It's been unbelievable. I think everyone expected this team to be this good at some point, but I don't think anyone expected this to happen at this point, right? Nobody that I talked to expected them to start 7-0, be the best team in football. We all knew it was there. We saw the offseason acquisitions. We saw the pieces. And, so we knew that this team could be this good, but I don't think anyone saw it happening this fast.
Now, Josh, I'll put my hands up to something in terms of Vance Joseph. As a Broncos fan, I was unimpressed with his stint as HC, and I wondered, how he would do. And you drafted Isaiah Simmons, and I really liked Isaiah Simmons. I wondered, could Vance get the best out of him? He's been brilliant, in fairness to him, for this Cardinals defense, and name obviously cropping up now as the head coach. Talk all begins. How impressed have people in Arizona been with Vance Joseph?
On a scale of like a 25, right? I mean, like what they're doing right now defensively is almost, I'd say maybe even more impressive than what they're doing offensively. He has the pieces. I think that's what NFL defenses are all about, right? Getting the right personnel to run your scheme. And he said something very interesting this week. He said that he knew it would take 2 to 3 years to get to this point. He said if it took any longer than that, he knew he wouldn't have an opportunity because they'd move on, just the way the NFL is these days. So they're right on track for what he wants. He understands that that this was his window, and he's obviously taking advantage of it. They have a great defensive front. I think getting JJ Watt and now losing him, obviously, which we can talk about, getting him was massive because it made the defense or offensive lines kind of have to figure out who you're going to block. And especially with the emergence of Marcus Golden this year, we've always known he's been good, but I think he kind of took another step in his progression as a player. As Vance pointed out this week, it's really hard to defend 3 guys. So you had J.J. Watt, you had Marcus Golden, and then you had Chandler Jones. But I think what they're doing, obviously, drafting Zaven Collins, a lot of people scratch their head because you already had Isaiah Simmons, you already had Jordan Hicks, but that 3-headed inside linebacker tandem's working out. But like you pointed out, I think this is going to get him a head coaching job simply because of how dominant they've been. They're great. They lead the league, on third down and fourth down percentage. They lead the league in points allowed per game. So this defense is doing as much for a 7-0 start as the offense is.
Josh, when you were on the last time, you suggested that the team was ready to make the next step up, and it just needed some experienced players. One player who's come in, and I wouldn't say he was the forgotten man towards his time at the end with the Bengals, but AJ Green has had a really good start, and Peter suggested
really good.
Fitzgerald having retired, he's kind of stepped in, and he's the experienced player that they needed on offense, in particular in the wide receiver spot.
He, I said it before the season started. I thought AJ Green was going to have 1,000 yards, and he's on pace for, I think, either just below or just above 1,000. What he's doing now is he's never been a number 2 receiver in his career. So that alone has kind of opened things up for him before. It's taken less stress off of him. It's taken less pressure off of him. He doesn't have to be the guy every single game. that's left to DeAndre Hopkins. So being able to have that freedom, let him kind of do his thing. He's being exactly how he wants to be. And he's giving Kyler Murray a great, number 2 option. He's and people say he's old, he's 33, he's washed up, all these things. He's not. I mean, I watch him every day during training camp. He still had all the speed, all the quickness, and the most important thing is he had the hands, right? I mean, he's making catches now that he's been making his whole career. So I don't think he's lost a step. I think he's given this team an incredible dynamic because you put him on one side, put DeAndre Hopkins on the other. What are you going to do as a defense? I mean, if you're going to roll coverage to DeAndre, you're one-on-one with AJ Green. He's 6'4", throw it up, he's going to catch it. You roll coverage to AJ Green, you're leaving DeAndre Hopkins one-on-one. I mean, like who does that? So there's just he adds so much to this offense, and then obviously it kind of trickles down from there. But he's been a major addition. Definitely not washed up, definitely not old. I mean, he's playing great football right now.
And as you say, Josh, the trickle-down effect when you're AJ Green and DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk suddenly gets more opportunity. Zach Ertz, you just brought in, obviously, could be a big addition. I mean, Josh, for the people that have kind of been aware of the Cards being, okay, they're still winning and they're now 7-0 and they're still rolling. There's a number of great kind of a little bit under the radar storylines in terms of how things have gelled. Like I'm thinking of Byron Murphy evolving really into a true CB1, but also even Jordan Hicks, who you mentioned, like you've told, hey, you're not going to be a Mike inside linebacker. And all of a sudden he returns by having an amazing season and almost proving it on the field. I mean, thinking of those two and any others you want to throw into the mix, I mean, what are the storylines that people maybe haven't been as aware of outside the big superstars in the Cards?
Man, can we talk about this Jordan Hicks storyline for a second? He had no desire to be in Arizona after they drafted David Collins. And you know what? I don't blame him. Back-to-back years, they drafted your replacement. So all he said was basically, go take a hike. I'm going to do what I do. And he's just totally impressed. I mean, he's been the key to this. I mean, I don't think David Collins, and I made this point many times during training camp in the offseason, I didn't think he was going to be able to handle everything as a rookie. And that's not a knock on him. That's just the NFL game is a complex game, right? There's a lot to handle into anoint a rookie as your starting inside linebacker right away and give him that green dot. That's a lot for a guy to do. And Jordan Hicks is he's a veteran. He's been there before. He had DeMeco Ryans, who's a 49ers defensive coordinator, kind of be his mentor as a rookie when he was with the Eagles. So he understands that role. And he's been doing it, but he's also been playing fantastic. I think another under-the-radar storyline is Chase Edmonds, right? He comes in. Well, there's two in the backfield. I think both him and James Conner. I think, Chase Edmonds, he really worked very hard this offseason on his route running and his catching and his receiving abilities, and it's really stood out. And then obviously James Conner comes in and just, I don't think anyone really expected him to be to have this kind of impact, but with Chase Edmonds beat up a little bit, we're starting to see it. The one guy you pointed out, and I don't think a lot of people understand how great he's been playing, is Byron Murphy. And one thing Cliff Kingsbury kind of passing a few weeks ago is that Murphy really kind of took a lot. He became the guy who really committed himself to film, to training, and they didn't see that out of him early on. There are actually some question marks over whether how dedicated he was during those first year and a half. Well, obviously all those questions have been answered, and he's playing great football. So there's a lot of small storylines. Obviously, this team's loaded with big names, big talent. But there's a lot of little guys that if they go to the Super Bowl, there's going to be a lot to write about.
Yeah. But just one quick follow-up on that, Josh. You mentioned about Jordan Hicks and the injury during the offseason, but there was also Chandler Jones as well. He submitted a trade request during the offseason. Yep. So we talked about this in our preseason big previews. Like, how is that all going to gel? And what has been the difference in the Cards? Is it Vance Joseph? Is it the team dynamic under Kingsbury? Like, why has that not been an issue so far?
I think it's probably a little bit of both of those, right? I mean, Vance Joseph and Chandler Jones are neighbors, so who knows how many conversations they had in the front yard while they're, watering the rocks because we don't have grass here in Arizona. I also think it's this team saw just how good they could be. And you get a guy like J.J. Watt. He's kind of that glue that kind of kept everything together, that kind of really makes this defense tick. So, Chandler Jones knew, hey, I have a chance to go out and win another Super Bowl right now, and then we'll deal with everything after the fact. And one thing he's always told me, because his contract has come up in the last few years, just randomly, I guess, and just kind of nothing like this. He hadn't asked for a trade request, but there's stuff that's come up, and I've asked him about it, and he's always said, "Josh, I let my agent handle that. He comes to me with everything, and then I don't get involved." And that's really kind of the approach he's taken. He definitely, I think he still wants to be traded. Maybe he doesn't want, maybe not necessarily at this point, but he doesn't want to be on this team. I think beyond if they're not going to pay him, and I don't blame him, right? So. I think that they just all bought in. It sounds so cliche. It's all coach speak, but I think they truly did see kind of what were the possibilities, and they kind of went with it. And obviously, it's kind of playing out in real time right now, and kind of everything's going better than I think they expected.
I have to say, Josh, you're holding a newborn baby in your arm while Mark has dropped out of the stream 7 times, so you're doing a better job than Mark. Had to put it in here. We've went 10, 12 minutes. We haven't talked about JJ Watt undergoing potentially season-ending shoulder surgery. It's, as an NFL fan, I'm disappointed for him because I know he's had a rough few years, and this was a fresh start.
Yeah, it's tough. You feel bad for the human side of things, right? I mean, obviously he's dealt with injuries. I think this is his 4th season having a major injury since 2016, something like that. But you look at obviously his impact on the defense, just not even just the football wise, like off the field, in the locker room, in the weight room. He was really one of these guys that led by example. Guys love watching him work out because he's an absolute monster in the weight room, an absolute beast. And guys just like pump these guys up, and then they go out and throw up all sorts of weight that we could never imagine throwing up in our lives. So he kind of had that trickle down effect, right? He really was a leader by example, but then he would pull guys aside and get to know them, and really was kind of, like I said earlier, he's really the glue to this defense, maybe even the entire locker room. So to see him go from that standpoint, I think was a blow to this team. I think that he's going to be around. He's a set type of guy. But at the same time, this Cardinals defense, I think, is built to survive an injury like this more so than they've ever been built before. So, you have Jordan Phillips, who's pretty good. He's been playing pretty good. He's been injured, just came back recently. You have, but then you have, Corey Peters is out with COVID. So once he gets back, he'll be, part of the rotation. Zach, oh my God, I just had an absolute blank. I'll come back to him. I can picture him right now. There's another, there's a couple other guys in the defensive line rotation that once everyone's back and healthy, this is going to be a very deep unit. And I think that what they can kind of do is kind of what we see, in ice hockey, just kind of throwing in lines. Like guys just keep rotating in, keeping guys fresh. Richard Lawrence is another guy. He's out with injury. You bring him back in, and I think that we're going to see this team. I don't think we're going to see the team miss too much of a beat without JJ Watt. And I know that's crazy to say because he's been playing great. He doesn't have the jaw-dropping stats, 1 sack, I think 10 tackles, but just his disruptiveness. And I don't even know if that's a word, but we're making it a word today. His ability to get behind, get through the line, get off of blocks, just create havoc and get these quarterbacks off their mark and make them, either throw quickly or move. That stuff you can't. I mean, we can measure because of all the analytics, but it doesn't show up in your traditional stat sheet, and that's been a huge impact for this defense. So I think all those guys combined are going to be able to help that. But obviously, you don't want 4 guys replacing 1. But sometimes it just has to happen that way.
Josh, it's funny, I suppose you're talking about a kind of a legendary figure and the Cards being able to, just progress without him. That's obviously the same with Larry Fitz, who still is yet to say what he's going to do, but in his new career as podcaster has been very complimentary about the Cards. I suppose two-part question. 1, will Larry ever say what he's going to do, or does he just go off into the sunset without ever announcing it? And 2, he said a few weeks ago he saw Kyler Murray as the front runner in the MVP race. Is that something you'd agree with?
I'll answer your second part first. Yes. I think he is your front runner. I think as long as this team is good, if not great, I think that he still plays at that level. I do think he is your favorite to win the MVP. Las Vegas has him as a favorite, but just what he does. I mean, he has complete control of this offense, right? I mean, he just has an incredible command, right? Yeah. Just great command of this offense. He's checking in and out of things. He's just playing very, very good football right now. And I think that's going to, lead him to the MVP as long as, the problem is that I think the national media doesn't really pay attention to this team. So if Matthew Stafford goes off and has a great rest of the season, or Zach Allen, and they go, they have great finishes, I think that there's a chance that you could see it stolen simply because people aren't paying attention to what Kyler's doing on a national level here in the States. But the other part was Larry Fitz, right? And do I think he'll ever announce? I don't know. I mean, I've known the guy for about a decade. He loves this attention. He loves his name kind of keep being brought back and back and back. And we have reporters here who literally ask about him, if not every week, every other week. And it's kind of like, he's not coming back at this point, right? He's playing a ton of golf. He's big into real estate. So he's doing all of that. He's making all sorts of money. He co-owns the Phoenix Suns and the Phoenix Mercury. So he's kind of, he's living that life. I think another part, and I wrote about this in week 1, is that, his Hall of Fame clock already started. So it's now 7 games in. So if he comes back at any point, he's not coming back. I think if he's out the whole season, he's not coming back. That's my opinion. But if he comes back at any point this season, he has to restart that 5-year clock. And that man, he wants to be a Hall of Famer. He wants to be a Hall of Famer. So this season, you have 4 more years. I mean, it's really, I don't see the point of that, and this team doesn't really need him at this point. I think one of my friends sent me a text message the other day, and they're like, "Is there they could be without Larry Fitzgerald?" And I was like, a lot of fans here don't want to face that reality, but it's true. I think that not having him around is allowing guys to kind of have more freedom to do their thing. I think Christian Kirk, like you pointed out, he's one of them. He's now in the slot, and he didn't really play a lot of slot with Larry Fitz. And when Larry Fitz is here, and Christian Kirk played the slot in college, and now since they moved him back, he's flourished. So maybe we are looking at a situation where not having the legendary star around kind of helps out everybody.
Josh, just looking ahead to this game this evening, the importance of it. I know it looks like the Packers are going to be missing quite a few players on offense, but from the Cards' point of view, to win this game and maintain, I suppose, being unbeaten and potentially getting that number 1 seed in the long run in a division where the Rams are, I know once they've beaten them, they still got to play them again. So the importance of moving forward with another win.
You just named it. I mean, getting that number 1 seed, holding on to that tiebreaker. I mean, this could be a situation where we could. I mean, depending on how the Bucks do, but we can see, Cardinals, Green Bay, Tampa, all in that fighting for those top 2 seeds. And a win today could go a long way in giving the Cardinals a leg up. And obviously, hosting these home games and then going to LA, it could. You really couldn't ask for a better situation for a team besides hosting it in your home stadium with having home field advantage. It's a quick hour flight to LA from Arizona. So this game is very important from that standpoint. It's also important from my perspective and is, a perception. It's a major perception game for this team because if they just win flat out, you go to 8-0, best start in franchise history. I think that people are going to start to pay attention. It's on national TV, only game on tonight. Everyone's going to be watching. But if you go out and you win big, I think people are going to they're going to have to say, okay, this team's for real, which has not happened yet. So I think there's a lot at stake. I think that they understand that, but they have this mentality and they've somehow been able to adhere to it. It's go 1-0 each week. That's what they keep telling us. That's kind of the message out of the locker room. So we'll see how it goes. I think that both sides know what's at stake. I think if anybody besides Tom Brady understands what this game is about, it's Aaron Rodgers. So he's not going to lay down. He's not going to roll over. He's going to want to win this game just as much as anybody. So I think that they both understand, what this could. A game like this in late October could have a lot of implications in early January.
Josh, I think I want to call out Owen's comment at the bottom that you're really good at multitasking, and certainly a credit to you there in terms of being able to juggle everything going on. Look, we could honestly talk to you all night in preparation of this game. Could get onto the offensive line and what Sean Kugler's done there as a coach with all the injuries they've had. We could talk so much more about Kyler, about the offense, about how the defense performed. But look, the Cards, they've already taken down the Rams, they've already taken down the Titans, they've already taken down the Browns, and our big game is in front of us tonight with the Packers. Josh, I want to thank you for your time in joining us tonight, just to build up in relation to the game, and we'll leave you to deal with burping in the next phases of sleep, hopefully, that is soon to follow before the game kicks off tonight. So thanks for joining us. Before you go, one last thing, give us a quick prediction, just who's going to win and why.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals are going to win. I think it's going to come down to health. I think the Packers are missing too many key players. And I think I think that this passing game is really going to continue to find its rhythm this week. And I think they understand kind of what JJ's injury, what kind of emotional effect it's going to have on the defense. I think that they're going to try to pick up that slack and put up, 35 points a game or 35 points again.
Josh, thanks so much. We'll tag you on Twitter for people to follow along with your ESPN account. And we'll see you in LA in February, Josh. Thanks so much.
Sounds good. You guys going to be there?
If you're there, we'll be there.
Hey, if you're there, we're going to have to do this live, guys. It'll be fun.
Absolutely.
Josh,
Sounds
thanks so
good.
much,
Thanks,
man.
guys.
All the
Thanks,
best.
Josh.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Josh.
Thank you. What a man. I mean, fair, like as we say in Ireland, boys, fair play to him. And Mark, I was only joking about your Wi-Fi. It's grand. Like, just go on your
No,
personal
no,
hotspot.
Michael, the thing is when the children get older than that's when they're playing around on your broadband at the same time and end up messing up your connection a few times. So, hey.
It's my bad. Just confiscate your son or daughter's PlayStation and stuff, and then sure.
Brings it all back, Mark, yeah?
The terror, it brings it back, Brian, yeah.
Hi to Fred as well as watching. There's a load of ones watching on YouTube. Welcome in, lads, and Owen as well. Thank you for that fantastic comment. We're going to talk Packers in a few minutes. Boys, is there anything that we want to talk about beforehand? Colin, if you anything that's maybe put your eyelids up in the league this week? In between
the disrespect shown to Mike Tomlin, which was disgraceful. Like, ridiculous. Mike Tomlin never had a losing season. 14 years as Steelers head coach, never had a losing season. And then he gets linked with the USC job. Like, talk about wishful thinking on Carson Palmer's part in terms of, and then blurting it out on the Dan Patrick show. Now, kudos to Dan Patrick. What an interviewer. And he manages to get stuff out of people. But just ridiculous to link Mike Tomlin to that job. And he rightly put the reports in their place when he asked, was Sean Payton getting asked about that? Sean Payton has had three back-to-back losing seasons. And was Andy Reid getting asked about that? Mike Tomlin is a phenomenal coach, doing a great job there, and in really difficult circumstances. It's really disappointing. It points to all the issues that the league still has. The fact that there are 3 black head coaches in the league. The fact that we need to see more diversity. We need and that you're talking about one of the top coaches who's won a Super Bowl going back to coaching college. Like Urban Meyer going back to coaching college, absolutely. Mike Tomlin, don't be ridiculous.
It's been suggested today that Urban Meyer will be going to LSU next season. As the next head coach there. He'd run a mile to get that job and get out of Jacksonville. For me, it's 8 o'clock airtime, which is the deadline for the trade deadline. I assume we're doing a live show on Tuesday night, and Jim White is going to be coming on or something along those lines.
Yellow tie
for deadline day. But it was interesting because now there's a lot of speculation coming out that Colin, I had to contact Colin immediately as soon as I saw that Allen Robinson potentially could be getting traded on Tuesday. And it's only speculation, but maybe the Bears are going to finally move him, give him his wish, and move him on. And as Colin said, hopefully he'll find a team with a good quarterback. But I think that's one of a few interesting storylines out there, and potentially we might see some bigger trades going ahead for Tuesday that we haven't seen over the past few years.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Texans. Brandon Cooks, really affordable contract. I mean, if the Texans, everyone's for sale, right? Like, everyone's for sale. There is the big obvious kahuna, which depends on a lot of other legal ramifications, which everyone keeps talking about. But anybody that wants to trade for anyone half decent, I think the Texans are a selling team. We're looking for a new James Bond. And I actually thought this week Mike Tomlin was just giving away the name of the new Bond movie to be next, because he said, never say never, but never. It's kind of like never say never again. It was just a brilliant line. So that was brilliant. But the other story, Michael, and we have to touch on it, the Washington report. Oh, sorry, that's right. The Washington whitewash, where we have a big investigation, but then we never actually commit anything to writing. And fair play to Mark Davis, who kind of feels like the Raiders have been done bad by all this. I'm just going, where's the report, guys? I want to see the report. You've got Stan Kroenke now apparently to weasel out or back out of indemnification agreements about the litigation related to the St. Louis Rams. So that owners meeting not only is leakier than a colander having been shot with a shotgun, but it's also stimulating some really fascinating storylines that will run and run and run. Obviously, the league hopes, I don't know, that some major player gets an injury or Urban Meyer does something stupid or someone somewhere takes the heat off the Washington story. But at the moment, it is still in the fire, is still in the focus, and rightfully so.
Let's take the heat off all of that for a minute and get back to tonight's game. 7-0 Cardinals against the 6-1 Packers. We've delighted to have a Green Bay Packers beat writer for the Athletic on. Matt Schneidman. Matt, for a start, I hope I've got your surname correct, yeah? Because it's Ireland.
Yes, you did.
Thank God. Okay, well, first off, welcome into the show, Matt. A very warm welcome, and really appreciate you coming on ahead of obviously the game in a few hours' time. We ask every guest this: have you any Irish heritage? Have you ever been to Ireland before?
I've never been to Ireland. I think my mother is 25% Irish. My mom's side of the family definitely is. I'm friends with the starting goalkeeper for the Irish women's national soccer team since I went to college with her, but that's about.
That's a pretty solid connection, and a man with, we imagine, a connection to Ireland is the Packers defensive coordinator, Joe Barry, who always welcome on the show, Joe, anytime you want to. Obviously won't be on the sidelines this evening. Just wondering about his impact, because obviously after week one and what went on, there was an awful lot of talk about Joe Barry and his record, and it hadn't been particularly good, but over the past kind of 6 weeks, the Packers have been very impressive on defense. So wondering about the perceptions of Joe Barry in Green Bay.
Better than after week one. I mean, they haven't played the best offenses aside from the Cincinnati Bengals, who they held to 22 points. You know, the big talking point through the first 6 weeks of the season was their red zone defense and how opponents had gone to the red zone 15 times and scored touchdowns all 15 times until last week against Washington, when they held Washington to 3 points on 4 red zone trips. So they're taking a step in the right direction. How tonight's game will be different with defensive backs coach Jerry Gray calling the plays, we'll see. You know, Joe Barry was still able to be a part of meetings throughout this week, so I don't assume there will be anything too different. You know, it's just a different person calling the plays. They've worked together all season. Players really respect Jerry Gray. He's been a defensive coordinator twice before in the league with the Bills and the Titans for 6 years before he came to Green Bay. Last year, he was the DBs coach in Minnesota. Now he's in his second season coaching the DBs in Green Bay. This is the best offense they've faced all season by far. You know, they've faced Jameis Winston, Ben Roethlisberger, Taylor Heineke, Joe Burrow's the best quarterback they've faced, Jared Goff, Jimmy Garoppolo, but now they're facing an offense with Kyler Murray and 4 really good wide receivers and a good tight end. So now we're going to see what the Packers defense is actually made of tonight.
Matt, obviously it's been a difficult week with the players ruled out on the offense because of the COVID situation. Are we going to see a run-heavy kind of offense this evening with AJ Dillon and Jones leading the way more so than Aaron Rodgers airing it out because of the number of players out of the team?
Yeah, I would assume so. You know, they didn't really get much of a running game going last week. I could see them doing that this week, but I could also see them throwing the ball, since the Cardinals probably expect the Packers to run the ball with no Devontae Adams, no Allen Lazard, no Marquez Valdez-Scantling. But the Packers still have guys who can catch. Randall Cobb's a trusted target of Aaron Rodgers, probably his best friend in the NFL. Robert Tonyan, who hasn't had much production in terms of catching passes this year, but tied Travis Kelce for most touchdowns caught among tight ends last season. And then Aaron Jones, who's one of the best pass-catching running backs in the league. So I wonder if they'll use Jones a lot more in passing situations, line him up as a receiver or in the slot, and just use A.J. Dillon primarily for running situations. But, yeah, I think, you know, compared to last week, they'll definitely run the ball more. But that's a really good Cardinals defensive line, and you don't just want to be too predictable. So I could see a steady dose of both tonight.
Yeah, Equiminius and Brown obviously wants to re-earn some trust with Aaron Rodgers there as well. But I like what you're saying. I think Aaron squared Rodgers to Jones might be a way forward. Looping back to the defense, actually, and I feel like on this show we should almost have now a permanent feature of a reunion klaxon. You remember from last week, guys, when we were talking about Goff and Darnold, we're talking about Forrest Buckner. There's a bit of a smaller reunion tonight. Davondre Campbell, who last season, third on the cards in tackles, 96 tackles, came to Green Bay after the Christian Kirksey kind of experiment didn't really work as planned. And he's not just filled a gap on the Green Bay Packers. He's been pretty much a standout. I mean, you're talking about the defense, the run defense, he's definitely played a major part on. And no one would have expected that in that June transaction. How have you seen him perform and others on defense? Are there any other under-the-radar stars on defense that have really contributed to this strong start?
Well, Davondre Campbell has been a revelation for the Packers. They haven't had a playmaking middle linebacker in Green Bay for so long. It's been over a decade. And the fact that they brought him in here, not only to call the plays for the defense or wear the green dot and relay the plays that come in from Joe Barry for the rest of the defense, but he's been, like you said, he's been solid in the run game. What's impressed me most is his tackling ability and his impact on the passing game. Like, so often in years past, we'd see Packers linebackers let the ball carrier come to them, tackle them 5 yards past the first down marker, lose tight ends in coverage, miss tackles. Davondre Campbell has been one of the best middle linebackers in football this season, which, is just a crazy thing to say for a Packers middle linebacker. Really good tackler, pretty good in pass coverage, has a couple interceptions this season, really good against the run. And he's going to be important tonight, especially if Kyler Murray gets outside the pocket, gets on the run a little bit. Davondre Campbell is going to be that guy who can prevent Murray from getting from that second level to the third level of the defense. I would keep an eye on, Rashawn Gary's not really an under the radar guy, but, Preston Smith and Kevin King are both questionable tonight. So I would imagine both of them play, but if one of them doesn't, a cornerback to keep an eye on would be Rasul Douglas. He's been with the team a couple weeks, been around the block. He's a veteran. He would play opposite Eric Stokes, and you're going to need as much as you can get from the Packers corners tonight without Jair Alexander, obviously still on injured reserve, because the Cardinals have DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, AJ Green, Rondale Moore. It's going to be a battle. So I would say, if Kevin King doesn't play, Rasul Douglas is another guy to keep an eye on, who has played pretty well the last couple weeks. And then obviously Campbell is the main guy there.
Just looking away from tonight's game, Matt, I know we don't want to do that, but just generally your thoughts on the NFC North this year in general. Obviously, a lot of talk around Chicago with Nagy and Justin Fields and the Bears. But look, obviously the Packers have started out very well. But what's been your thoughts on the NFC North so far this season?
It stinks. I think the NFC North is really bad. The Packers can sleepwalk to this division title. Even if they lose tonight, they have a commanding lead on the division. The Vikings are probably the biggest competition. I think the Bears are a mess right now. The Lions obviously are, 0-7, haven't won a game. That speaks for itself. The Packers have a pretty difficult schedule coming up. They have obviously Arizona tonight, at Kansas City next week. Then they have in their next couple games, I don't know if I have the order correctly, but Minnesota, Seattle, Los Angeles Rams, the division opponents again, Cleveland, Baltimore. So it's a pretty tough schedule. I still think they can win the division. There is no reason why they should lose any division games this year. They're by far and away the best team in the division, even not at full strength. And then, they should be getting David Bakhtiari back next week, who's arguably the best offensive lineman in football. Assuming Devontae Adams is asymptomatic, they should get him back next week if he tests negative twice. Alan Lazard, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, they're getting their guys back. Even Jair Alexander might be coming back soon. So with those reinforcements, I think by far and away that they'll win this division, and the rest of it isn't very good.
Yeah, Matt, you mentioned Bakhtiari, big fan of him on this show, both for his playing ability, but also his Twitter game ability. We all remember he's very strong, particularly obviously the contract tweets back in March when Trent Williams beat him out by that 10K. Mm-hmm. But was it the case that they were just being careful? Could he have gone tonight if really it needs be, or were how careful, how worried are they that there might be a reoccurrence in terms of the injury? Because as you said, he is one of the top O-line guys in the entire league.
Yeah, I don't know directly, but if this was the Super Bowl, I'd imagine he'd be playing. But we're 7 games into the season. Tonight's the 8th, and here's a guy who's way too valuable. He's a 300-plus pounder coming off a major injury. You don't want to rush him back any sooner than you have to. And Matt LaFleur talking to us on Tuesday, he didn't sound like a guy who thought Bakhtiari was going to play. He said, we're not going to rush anything. It's a major injury for a really good player. So he came back the Wednesday before the Washington game, and that's when the 21-day window to activate him to the 53-man roster or end his season began. So I don't even know what day it is today, but I believe then the Kansas City game would be the last game he could be active or no. Regardless, I'd have to look at that. But the point is, he will be back. But I think right now they're just being safe. I understand it's a big game tonight, but there's no point to rush him back. I don't think, well, maybe he would be the difference between a win and a loss, but what matters most is that you have him for the home stretch. You're not in danger of losing the division by not playing him tonight. By no means are the Packers waving the white flag by not playing him. They're just being smart. And it's not like it's a wide receiver. Like in college, Amari Rodgers came back from a torn ACL in 5.5 months. This is a big boy, David Bakhtiari, probably a little more fragile. So you got to take your time with him. But he'll be back in the next week or two, and the Packers O-line will be back to normal.
Matt, when we did our season preview show, I think majority within the show agreed that we felt the Cardinals would be challenging potentially for a wildcard slot. We certainly didn't believe they'd be unbeaten or heading up the division ahead of the Rams. Are you pleasantly surprised by how they've gone about their business?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, what's been most surprising is obviously they have the playmakers on offense, but their defense tied for first in the league in points allowed per game at 16.3. Losing J.J. Watt is huge. He's had a really good season so far. But Marcus Golden is, I think, a really underrated pass rusher. Obviously, Chandler Jones, a fellow Syracuse product like myself, coming back off the COVID list. Budda Baker is one of the best safeties in the league. I think they're a really good team on both sides of the ball. And Aaron Rodgers said it this week. They've really gotten after the quarterback in the passing game. And the Packers are going to really have to withstand that initial surge, is the way Rodgers put it. If Arizona throws that first punch, Packers got to throw one right back. If the Packers get the ball first and go 3 and out and Rodgers is sacked twice and that crowd's going crazy on national television, it could be a long night. And Rodgers knows that because that's exactly what's happened to him when he's played here in this stadium before. But now it's named State Farm Stadium, and he's a State Farm spokesman, so maybe the mojo will change a little bit.
The corporate branding will help him. The corporate branding will help him. So I love the way you slot in a little bit about the orange there. Nicely done, Matt. But look, Matt, I mean, you mentioned about, we were just talking about David Bakhtiari. Another player isn't there for Green Bay tonight is Zadarius Smith. Obviously, that's a big impact on the pass rush. And it goes without saying about the wide receivers that aren't there. But I mean, like, just a few random stats that I just think really are going to show up the impact tonight. Davante Adams so far this season has 744 yards. Next on the list is Aaron Jones on 186. He's had 13 plays of more than 20-plus pass yards. The next on the list is Randall Cobb at 3. I mean, this is a monumental impact. So when you add that up, you add up Zadarius Smith, you add up, Dave Bakhtiari, you add up the fact, as you said, this is probably the best offense they're going up against, and who knows if the defense is really lined up to make it. I mean, other than the fact that you still have Aaron Rodgers, who's a perennial MVP, and can they tell us how Green Bay is going to win this game? Tell us how they're actually going to turn it around tonight.
They shouldn't. I think the Cardinals win 34-24 is my prediction, but the Packers have no business winning this game. There's really no area besides obviously the quarterback position where you look at, or maybe not even the quarterback position, where you look at and say the Packers have a decided clear-cut advantage here. The Packers O-line is banged up against the Cardinals' menacing pass rush. The Cardinals secondary, maybe that could be a weakness, but Packers have no wide receivers. I mean, they have, they're without their top 3. I don't want to sell Randall Cobb and Equanimeous St. Brown short, but and then on the other side of the ball, the Cardinals outmatch the Packers in every area. Maybe the Packers D-line can slow down the Cardinals running game with Chase Edmonds and James Conner a little bit, but even that I would say is a toss-up. The Packers have no business winning this game, but I could see, and part of me, there's a little bit that I'm thinking, could this just be a game where Aaron Rodgers goes out and reminds everybody he's still Aaron freaking Rodgers and puts the team on his back and delivers one of those vintage performances? In 2015, in the divisional round playoff game between the Packers and Cardinals, well, it was 2016, it was the 2015 playoffs. In this same stadium, the Packers were without Jordy Nelson, Davante Adams, Randall Cobb because he punctured his lung early in the game, and Ty Montgomery, their top 4 receivers. They were down to Jared Abbrederis, Jeff Janis, and James Jones. And they somehow sent the game to overtime, converted a 4th and long from their own end zone. Then Aaron Rodgers throws the Hail Mary to Jeff Janis. He knows what he's doing in this stadium. You know, the Packers are 6-0 without Davante Adams the last couple of years. Granted, they haven't been without all the guys there without Za'Darius, Jair, David Bakhtiari, Davante Adams. That's 4 all-pro players. You know, they have no business winning this game, but could a Packers team with nothing to lose, playing on house money, make it interesting? Sure, why not?
Yep, but Matt, they lost that playoff game though.
I know, but at least that's why I said make it interesting. Doesn't mean they have to win.
Matt, I don't want to give away my pick, but that's a very intriguing point you're making there, and I think it's going to be a good game. And I think this whole injury talk for Green Bay, it's still a good game. You got a 7-0 football team going up against a 6-1 football team. A 6-1 football team that a lot of people, a lot of analysts in the wider media thought were finished after week 1. So the Packers have came back strong. I want to thank you for coming on tonight, Matt. And obviously, anybody watching, obviously, folks, subscribe to The Athletic. Really appreciate the support, Matt, and enjoy the game tonight.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me on, guys. Great chat.
Thanks, Matt.
See you again soon, Matt. All the best.
Thank you, Matt.
Bye-bye. Matt Schneidman from The Athletic. I'm not going to lie, my wife brought up a packet of Polo Mints. And I'm currently... Colin, do you want to take a trip for a second?
Baby bottles and Polo Mints.
This show is having all this week, boys.
Did anyone see the tweet from Ian Rappaport earlier on, which listed the injury to JJ Watt that he played with? He tore his labrum, his bicep, and his rotator cuff, alongside dislocating his shoulder, which tells you just how much animosity he felt towards the Texans, given that he went out in the second half and did a number on them. So kudos to JJ, but by the sounds of that, he'd be doing well to make it back for the playoffs. But hey, if he gives Ray Lewis a call, all things are possible.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of wonder, did he do too much to himself for little to no gain, really, other than that animosity, as you allude to, Colin? I mean, what if he'd come out at half-time? And what if he'd given the chance to heal? How much damage did he do in continuing to play? I know we're never going to know, but it just feels sad that this was almost like a season where he was having a bounce-back year after all the terrible injuries, and now it looks like we've lost him again for the season. Someone has done so much good in the NFL. Obviously, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. Obviously, stuff he did for the local area in Houston after the hurricane. It's just terrible to see. This season, I'm annoyed actually on Monday. We didn't. There was one other thing I meant to allude to, which obviously is a story which continues to run, which is how much your man is getting out of Brady's ball. And Tom Brady breaking on ESPN on Monday night with the Manning brothers that, I gave him a Bitcoin as well because that's cool. I'm sure the guy who gave away the ball is less than impressed about the taxes he's now going to have to pay now that Tom Brady's publicly announced that. But again, on the commentary, I don't know if you heard Tony Romo maybe being a bit too effusive that what he should hold out for is a date with Giselle. And when Tony Romo mentioned it once, it was kind of like humorous. When he mentioned it about the 7th time, I think Tony Romo was, more betraying he wants a date with Giselle and would like that to occur. So, bit of crack there.
Probably reflecting on his poor commentary, but nothing new there.
Jesus, Brian. Tony Romo's a great commentator. Why he's up here.
Tom, just to highlight though, Tom Brady is an FTX ambassador, so may not be his Bitcoin, maybe somebody else's.
What else did he get? Actually, I saw the breakdown of he got 2 season tickets for next season. He got Evans match balls for the other touchdowns. A season ticket for the remainder of the year, and
jerseys, a helmet. I still think it would have been, had he got the round of golf that he wanted, that would have probably been much better for him, in fairness, because that memory would have lasted longer. But I guess not to be.
Well, it's hard enough to get Tom Brady on a Zoom call. Never mind get him on a round of golf, and I think we all know that. Brian, before we make our picks, and let's not give anything away here, Brian. Our friends over at Matchbook Betting Exchange have got a £15 or €15 welcome offer. Bonus code Irish NFL Show. The over, Bri, because you're the expert here after your bet last week. I don't even know what happened. The over's 51, and the Cardinals are -6 favorites. What's your thoughts on that? Without giving your pick away tonight?
Without giving my pick away, I think the line started earlier in the week at 2.5, but unfortunately, because of the situation with COVID and the players been ruled out, the line has progressed as the week has gone on to hit 6.5. The under for I'm on the under here this evening. I think the Packers are going to struggle offensively because of the players that are ruled out, and they won't be able to match up in terms of competing on the score. And I don't want to give you a pick away, Michael, but 6.5, and Matchbook have updated us this evening to say that it won't come as a surprise that majority of the money is on the Cardinals to cover that 6.5 point spread.
So far in 7 games this year, the Cards are 6-1 against the spread, but the Packers are also 6-1 against the spread. So that's a useless piece of information.
Something has to give, Mark. Something has to give.
Information. Code Irish NFL show new customers only in terms of that bonus code, in terms of the deposit offer or money back as cash if your first bet loses. Look, please be gamble aware. Please gamble responsibly. Don't bet what you can't afford, gentlemen and ladies. It's time, boys and girls, if you're watching. Picks. Who have we got? Colin, I'm still to watch this game live tonight because it's a hell of a game. 7-0, 6-1. I am, because I'm off work this week, but I am still to watch it. Who have you got?
Nice to be on midterm. It is a really intriguing game. And the first time that the Cards have been 7-0 since 74, and then they lost the 8th game that season. But if you go back to December 2015, they put a beat down on the Packers, 38-8. Aaron Rodgers played in that game, and that was a decent Packers side. They finished that season 10-6. There are a lot of similarities this year in some ways between Rodgers and Murray and how they're playing, and both of them on the move last week, throwing across their body, both three TDs on Sunday. Both get sacked at a similar rate, so lots of similarities, and both teams actually get sacks at a very similar rate as well. There was an injury report that we didn't touch on with Josh, but D-Hop was listed as questionable with a hamstring injury. Now, on a lot of teams losing one of the top receivers, or he'll play, but like, will he be limited? But AJ Green, Christian Kirk, Rondell Moore, Zach Ertz, they kind of have enough weapons to get by. And with Adams and Lazard out, the Packers aren't as deep. I look, Aaron Rodgers will always, you imagine, keep you in a game unless it's week 1 against the Saints. But I think that ultimately the Cards are on third down and in the red zone on both sides of the ball have been really fantastic. I think that's what will edge this game for them. I can see there being plenty of points, and I'm going to go the Cards to win a really interesting game and go to 8-0 and set a new record for the franchise.
Yeah, I said in that group this morning, all things equal, and if both teams had all the players at their disposal, I'd probably lean towards the Packers here. But I think losing one player is too much. I know Mark has touched on the stats there in terms of how important Adams is, but at the same time, the other 2 guys can hold their own in terms of who've gone out of the team. So for me, it's difficult to see how the Packers can keep up with a team that is breaking all sort of records on offense, averaging 32 points a game, the best record since 1948 for this stage of the season. I see the Cards winning, and I don't think it's going to be, I'm not going to say it's going to be a blowout because that's a bit harsh to say on a Packers team. They'll probably be proven wrong by Rodgers, but I think the Cards will do more than enough to win the game.
So the O'Connell's song, I think, was 74, 75. You're bringing up 74 season there for the Cards. They won actually back-to-back NFC West, I think, in 74 and 75, 10-4, then 11-3. So they were on a purple patch. There is no doubt that this year's 2021 Cardinals are in a purple patch. And to me, this is a little bit like we were talking about the Bengals last week for the big game they had. If you're going to do it, now's the time. They've got to, it's carpe diem, seize the day, and all that, because you're never going to get the Packers at a better time. And the Cardinals, I mean, look, Matt made his case, and we welcome that. But even when he makes his case, he brings up one of the overtime losses. Of course, they also lost the 2009 wildcard playoff game to the Cardinals. But we're going back to Kurt Warner days and a long time in the past in that regard. To me, there's just too much to overcome. Yes, Aaron Rodgers is an amazing regular season quarterback. Postseason, not so much. But he's very good in the regular season. I just think it's going to be a bridge too far for him to overcome. And this Cards are a good team. As I mentioned, they've already beaten the Titans, albeit week 1. They've beaten the Rams. They've beaten the Browns. They have beaten some good teams already. The only fear is they get caught in the bright lights and they suddenly freeze on the bigger stage. But I don't think that's going to happen. I believe in Kyler. I believe in Cliff. And I believe that Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones are just going to have too much to overcome. So I'm going Cards as well.
The Cardinals defense is the first in the NFL in third downs and fourth down to get 12 turnover and downs. I don't believe this whole hype this week in terms of the Packers that got all these guys injured. This is the guys of the team and the guy in Aaron Rodgers that took them, one quarter from a Super Bowl last year. He's done Thursday Night Football. He knows Thursday Night Football. We've seen enough Thursday Night Football games. If I keep saying Thursday Night Football, maybe they'll win. But the one that got me was our friend from Ardmaha, Dara Carragher's tweet the other day. Aaron Rodgers in the last 6 games without Davante Adams, 142 for 202, 1,865 yards, 17 touchdowns, 1 interception, 125.2 passer rating, 6-0. He still has Aaron Jones. I think tonight's going to be a shootout. I'm going with the over. I'm taking the Packers, boys, for the sheer crack of it. The Cardinals go 7-1. Taking it for the crack. Why not? Have to mix it up. And also, Mark, going on the music, I got a feeling, the Black Eyed Peas, and ABBA, going back to ABBA last weekend, I still have faith in you. I still have faith. I've got faith in Aaron Rodgers. And
you should have just gone George Michael. George Michael faith would have been perfect, Michael.
Freedom.
Good.
Well,
Good.
Freedom for Rodgers at the end of the season if he moves on. Huh?
Yeah, freedom. We could have a whole George Michael round devoted to Aaron Rodgers. That would be great.
I hope for the Packers' sake you haven't inflicted the pick them for the crack curse that the Jets suffered at the weekend, where Mac Jones put 400 yards and how many points, Mark?
54, I think, Colin. 54.
54, yeah, that's right.
Do you know who Mac Jones has the same amount of yards for the season with? Justin Herbert. He's shown for the exact. He's 1 yard ahead of Justin Herbert for the season, and I think it was 276 to 275 throws. There you go. But he's only a rookie, eh?
Let Mac cook. In fairness, he got a lot. You got
to play who you got to play.
Well, people made out that Mac Jones was the fat German kid from The Simpsons, and he's proven that is not the case.
The reason why I saw that stat, guys, was because, as we all know, Mark's Patriots are playing on Sunday against the Chargers in LA, so it's a really interesting game in Squire Show. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Colin. Yes.
Isn't Phil Simms the guy that had the tea bag in the cup one day and he was live drinking it?
I always leave my tea bag in the cup, so me and Phil are exactly the same.
That's disgraceful. You leave a tea bag in the cup. That's a disgrace.
Oh my God.
No. Tea bag in the cup.
That's a revelation too far.
Revelation. Next time we do a live show, I'm going to bring my uncle along. He leaves 3 tea bags in the cup.
Next you'll be saying that you prefer. Next you'll be telling me that Barry's is better than
Colin's disgusted there. I drank some Beauty's tea this week on my travel.
Phil Simms sometimes forgot what teams were playing, for Christ's sake.
Phil Simms is great. You can't knock Phil Simms. Come
on. Today actually was the anniversary of Eli Manning scoring the first touchdown in London. Those are the picks for tonight. Has anybody else anything they want to say ahead of tonight, or just in general before we wrap up for Thursday night? Colin, have you anything to say? I know it's fine.
I'm probably more almost as disgusted at Brian's teabagging habits than I am.
Careful now.
The questions for Mike Tomlin during the week.
Well, I'm going to stick back to the football because this gets dangerously concerning. A really interesting set of games this weekend, which is normally the halfway point of the season for most teams in terms of playing 16 games. But there's some very interesting games coming up this weekend, in particular the Patriots coming to charge. And I can't wait to hear the analysis of the Broncos and Washington for this weekend.
Mark, very quick one for you just before you come in, man. Don't know why that Patriots Chargers game's on Sky this Sunday. No idea. Just putting that out there.
Two pretty big fan bases, and one of the teams
There's
is
better
actually
games on it at the
got
same
a great
time.
chance of going to a Super Bowl. Not
Better
the
games
Patriots
on it.
for a change. So fully understand it, actually, Michael.
I'll tell you. I'll probably give you a rational point as to why it's on, because the Bucks and Saints is probably the better game at the same time. But unfortunately, they picked the Bucks last weekend because they thought the Bucks and Bears would be a good game. It was a blowout, and they can't show it in 2 weeks in a row, because if they do, people get on social and start shooting Sky Sports NFL down for showing the same team a couple of weeks in a row. So they can't have it both ways.
And also bigger fan bases. Like in the UK and Ireland, we know the bigger fan bases exist in relation to the Chargers and, of course, in relation to the Patriots. But look, Michael, to last tonight's game and everything. Look, last Christmas, Aaron Rodgers had a careless whisper. And unfortunately, after looking up to a father figure like Brett Favre, he's potentially on his last event there. But before he gets his freedom, Michael, at least you have faith that he's going to win tonight. So we'll see if him and George Michael can win.
I thought you were going to sing "Last Christmas I Gave You My Heart."
Well, yeah, I mean, he last Christmas he gave something else. He gave a ridiculous throw on third down in the NFC Championship game. But hey, what are you going to do? So, but look, Michael, you've gone with the Packers. We'll look forward to talking to you on Friday. I mean, not just the show, but the abuse.
You mean on Sunday? Yeah,
it'll be great.
It'll be the same background on Sunday morning that you have now. Yeah,
exactly. In fairness, Michael could well be right on that one. I wouldn't be at all surprised.
I'm like 6-1 on Thursday night. Like literally, it's easy to call. I think the Packers are going to win. I want to give a shout out to Richard Graves who's watching. Hi, Richard. Richard's on Jeff Reinbold show tomorrow night at 7:30. Sebastian Vollmer's also on, and he's very vocal because Sebastian's one is pre-recorded. Very vocal on where the game's going to be in Germany. He doesn't say anything, but he's very vocal on Mac Jones. So in a good way if you're a Patriots fan. And boys, there may or may not be a Jeff Reinbold appearance in Dublin this side of Christmas. We're going to leave it at that. Yeah.
Say no more, Michael.
If we're all good and we ask Santi nicely.
Okay. Well,
on that note,
it's he's not real. Yeah. Okay.
Careful. Right. Weekend.
All right. Good luck. Thanks to Trust. Thanks to Matchbook. That's the picks ahead tonight. Thanks everyone for watching. Nearly 2,000 people. Thanks a million, honestly, lads and ladies. Back Sunday morning. We are 1 year old this weekend. Will there be a cake? I have no idea. Sunday morning, 10 a.m. for week 8. Enjoy Thursday Night Football. I'll be up drinking a pint of Guinness. Feel free to tweet me at Michael NFL, at Colin from Cork, at Brian something BOL 269 and
2903.
I don't even know what Mark says, but look, find us on Twitter. See you later, boys. Have a good night.
Neither do I.
Take care.
Thanks to Josh and Matt as well. Good night, everyone.